¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wednesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Wednesday. How's it going, Echo Wrestle Dragon? It seems like we kind of, more or less, have a functioning microphone, so we'll take it. How's it going, everybody? We will try to get through as many headlines as possible. Today might be a little bit of a short stream. Kevin McCarthy is not having a wonderful Wednesday. Well, that's good. How's it going by Battle Meatbag? If Kevin McCarthy is not having a wonderful Wednesday, then things are all right, you know? Speaking of which, 5 rounds of votes, and yet it doesn't seem like he's getting through, which is honestly, quite frankly, hilarious. As far as the voting goes, it looks like they're going to attempt to do another vote or another round at about 8 p.m. Eastern time. So that's pretty funny. Hilarious. Hakeem Jeffries only needs 6 more votes to become speaker. Likely not going to happen, but also not impossible. I mean, it seems like it's closer to being the case than it is not being the case, if that makes more sense. It's closer to being true than it is not. I don't see 6 Republicans voting for Jeffries, but that would be hilarious. Yeah, I would. It would. I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily votes for. They just have to not participate, right? Is that how that works? I honestly forget. Yeah. Alio, sure, how's it going? Jeffries, Democrats gets most inconsistent numbers every vote. Yeah, but I don't know how that will play at the end. I don't know if it'll end up happening, but that would be really funny. That would be hilarious. I think that would be the icing on the cake. Alio with the 10 biddies, thank you. That would honestly be the icing on the cake if he actually ends up not being able to have the votes for speaker, and it ends up that the Democratic Party ends up with the speakership. That would be just wild. They need 218 votes, assuming everyone is there. If anyone votes present, the number needed drops. Right. Correct. Yeah. I was reading, I saw last night that the longest that this has gone on was like for 2 months and no one can be sworn in until a speaker is chosen. Uh, Good memes. The GOP lets do the work out of the American people, but let me speak and vote 15 times. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like I said yesterday, the more chaos and division and disunity there is within the Republican Party, the better it is. The better everybody is. Until the clerk person that is doing the votes now, until then, gotcha. Until then, the clerk person that is doing the votes is in charge. That's funny. I mean, can there be a scenario where there isn't a speaker, or does it have to continue in perpetuity until there's a speaker? Is that how that works? Like they're gonna continue to hold votes after votes after votes until the speakership is done? Is that how that works? All right. Let's see if this finally works. Oh, I fixed it. Ha! There we go. Well, I'll be darned. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, it works. Michael Hassler, how's it going? Yeah, because the speaker's the only one who can swear in the house, and there's no house until they get a speaker. Oh, man. Wow. I feel sorry for the staff and I feel sorry for the staff and for Ukraine. Otherwise, I'm all about the voting. Oh yeah, no, these are some good memes, folks. No doubt about it. Huh. The start of a new Congress is always accompanied by anticipation about what laws, alliances, and political skirmishes will take shape in the new legislative session this year. There's also an unusually high level of drama over the most basic question facing the House: who will serve as Speaker? House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is vying for the job but struggled to gain support. He ultimately doesn't have the votes to wield this gavel, but what happens? Good question. Academics say anyone looking to Constitution for guidance will be sorely disappointed. Okay, Well, we'll get into this. Actually, this is probably a good way to start. Um, this is probably a good way to start the stream. This is a preview of the next 2 years. Sheesh. All right, folks. I managed to fix the microphone input problem. Can everybody hear me okay? Is it good? Sound is good? At least it looks like I fixed it. Yes? Okay. Sweet! Cool. All right. Yeah, I think that we should start on that one. Thank you, Echo. Let's do it. Echo Resto Dragon. Let's do that. All right. So as I was going through this, the House Minority Struggle leader Kevin McCarthy is vying for the job but struggled to gain support. Yada yada yada. If he ultimately doesn't have the votes to wield the gavel, what happens? Good question. Unfortunately, the Constitution is not going to give us the answer. The Constitution says nothing about the process for the Speaker of the House, says Matthew Green, a professor of political science at the Catholic University of America. Red flag. All it says is Article 1 is that the House shall choose a Speaker. That's it. The role of the Speaker is one of the few that appears in America's foundational document, but the rules for picking one and the powers of the office were intentionally left vague, only one major condition being that the entire House must participate. Instead, the rules have evolved over centuries like other political customs that have developed as norms rather than originating from written rules. They're more vulnerable to possible abuse or dysfunction. Gotcha. MTG admitted Republicans need 218 votes to get anything done. I mean, yeah, true. MTG isn't the only one holding things up for once. Funny. By tradition, the speaker is selected by a roll call vote, which a majority is required to elect a speaker, though in theory, if some members vote present, a nominee can still win a plurality of the votes cast and become speaker. In Congress's early years, the speaker vote was done by secret ballot, which made coalescing around any candidate difficult, leading to consistent gridlock in the country's first decades. The earliest parties formed in part around electing the speaker. Said Eric Schickler, a professor of political science at the University of California at Berkeley. In the second and third Congresses, there was more Jeffersonians elected, but the Federalists were organized and elected their choice of speaker. That started this practice of parties getting together and trying to settle on one candidate at the start. This new Congress is set to gather on Tuesday to elect a speaker and enact the rules for Congress, two things that must happen before it can do anything else. The majority of the chamber, 218 votes, is usually needed to elect a speaker. Both parties traditionally nominate their caucus leader for the job. If the majority leader's party rallies behind him or her in a scenario that McCarthy's allies hope for, as he stands more than 5 votes shy of the needed number, the roll call is completed in a single round. Clearly, that did not materialize. Sorry. The speaker roll call is overseen by the incumbent clerk of the House, an administrative role that records the happenings of the chamber. If no nominee commands a majority of the chamber, then the clerk can conduct the roll call until the victor is decided, or rules can be amended to force out at least popular candidates or allow only for a plurality of votes to elect the speaker, as was sometimes the case in the 1850s. The 1856 fight for speaker took 2 months. Wow. The longest in history, and was only resolved with a plurality vote. The House can still vote to adopt the rules for the new Congress without electing a speaker, but until a speaker is selected, there are no other official members of the House, because selecting the speaker is the first order of business to officially constitute the chamber. As a result, no work can be done until the speaker vote is handled. McCarthy made her some promises to put her on committees. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to pan out. Too bad MAGA can't lose their job. Yeah, I mean, well, President Biden was laughing at the U.S. House. Can you blame him? I mean, he did. He had like a second there, where he said that it's embarrassing. And it is for Republicans. All right. In 1859, the eve of the Civil War, the House was so divided it couldn't select a speaker for weeks. Its pro-slavery lawmakers paralyzed the chamber by tanking nomination of abolitionists. In 1923, the House held 9 votes for speakers over 3 days because the House Republicans' Minority Progressive Caucus refused to back the incumbent Republican speaker until he conceded to certain demands, including a seat for the caucus of the House Rules Committee. It was the last time multiple roll calls were necessary to choose a speaker. The danger there is that McCarthy gives away the store if he gets elected speaker, and it would be a hollow victory because he wouldn't have the tools needed to enforce discipline. But there is no rule and no constitutional recourse for a situation in which no nominee can garner a majority of the chamber's support. Instead, would-be speakers must bargain and build relationships to solve any deadlock, which can become easier when political camps are more sorted. Yeah. I don't know about that. Sure. The power of the speaker is historically closely tracked with the broader state of the nation's politics. In eras where the majority political parties are highly polarized and closely divided in the House, the speaker inversely wields more power. But when the parties were internally divided, the speaker commanded less loyalty from the splintered faction and thus less power in the chamber. In the antebellum era, division over slavery created regional fissures within the Democratic and Whig parties, causing prolonged fights to elect a speaker where no candidate can get a majority. This happened again in 1930s and the 1970s when Democratic and Republican parties were internally split over civil rights and segregation. Since the 70s accelerating into the 90s, the speaker has become much more powerful as party leader. What eras of polarization bring are parties that remain united, which means that the head of the party will have more ease in keeping the caucus disciplined. There's another option which has never been used. The House members could elect someone from outside the chamber. The Constitution is blind to the existence of parties, and any person, whether they are a member of the House or not, can be nominated and become House Speaker. Some members of Congress have signaled that they're opening to a break from tradition in electing a member outside the chamber who'd have a broader, potentially bipartisan appeal. It's unclear whether such a move would alleviate or inflame tensions in the House. Yeah, I don't know. That would be, I guess, that would be a historic first. Fred Upton? Um, that would, okay. Unfortunately, I don't know much about him. I mean, the Washington Post literally put out an opinion piece an hour ago. A literal hour ago saying that the Dems should back a centrist Republican. Okay. Disgruntled Republican lawmakers have another option. Green said they could vote for McCarthy, but then stall Congress by voting against the House rules that are adopted at the start of each 2-year session. Huh. Okie dokie. It's an odd situation where, on one hand, due to the polarization, you'd expect Republicans to have a strong speakership, but instead, you have a faction within the party who's pretty much no matter who is nominated, they're going to be causing trouble for that person. Huh. Yeah, who knows if they're going to figure this out tonight. Um, there's going to be a set of votes, I think, in a couple of hours. Again, round 6? Round 6, potentially? I'm not sure. Oh, round 7, he lost the 6th one as well? Lamau. I mean, like, I've tried to keep up during, like, the day, but it... I left off at round 5. Ah. That's too funny. McCarthy needs to withdraw. True. Each round, Kevers loses a vote. That's too funny. Uh, I mean, quite frankly, um, the whole entire scenario is absolutely hilarious. Just like, I mean, obviously, like, even if we found ourselves in a scenario where Hakeem Jeffries ends up being the Speaker of the House, because, like, I mean, you know, Hakeem Jeffries is Hakeem Jeffries. But even if we found ourselves in a scenario where he ends up being the Speaker by some wild circumstance, some wild set of circumstances, um, it's just funny at that point. Funny, funny stuff. All right, folks, we've got to. We got to get the show on the road. So we'll see what happens with the speakership. I'm trying to see if there's any like live coverage, but I think it ended until they resume. So we'll see. We'll probably find out more tomorrow, to be quite frank. All right, folks. I guess we should start with this update. Yeah, C-SPAN. I guess we should start with this update. The people, the folks who decided to attack the power station, cutting off power for 14,000 people. We found, it looks like they were caught. Apparently, um, this whole scheme was hatched so that they could burglarize a store easier. They damaged the power substation or the infrastructure, taking out the power to 14,000 people so that they can rob a store. Yeah. That's it's quite a rap sheet there. Conservatoid's dad. Yikes. Two men have been charged with the Christmas Day attack on four power substations near Tacoma that left about 14,000 homes and businesses without power. While federal authorities have long said the country's power grid is vulnerable to terrorists and domestic and foreign, the suspects may have been motivated by the spoils of burglary, apparently. Matthew Greenwood and Jeremy Crayon, I don't know, whatever, both near Puyallup. Oh, God, I'm not going to be able to pronounce any of these things. Were planning to rob a business which would have been made easier with the electricity unavailable for security, cameras, lighting, and other elements. They said the men carried out the burglary during the power outage, according to the court documents. Womp, womp, womp. It wasn't clear whether the men had attorneys. The Federal Public Defender's Office for Western Washington didn't immediately respond for a request for comment. The case was filed on Saturday and unsealed Tuesday. So basically, that's the conclusion of the Washington attack on the power substations. 14,000 people. Unbelievable. All right. Because we like our good old debunking. We love a good debunking, don't we, folks? Let's especially with like the religious types. Let's check in with our buddy Ben. Content warning, Ben Shapiro, you've been warned, folks.
This special episode of The Ben Shapiro Show. Today's show features a portion of my last book club.
Okay. So, before we ultimately end up wasting 18 minutes and 30 seconds of our time, the thumbnail is, let me see. There was a reason why I clicked on this thing. Hold on. Is it gonna let me? Jesus.
The streets, right?
So, I wanted to show the thumbnail. Come on.
Right me.
Okay. The thumbnail is 10 ways the devil, with a, you know, puppet thing, which is really, really weird. 10 ways the devil works in the world. And the title of the video, How C.S. Lewis Predicted Our Culture Today. Yeah, I'm getting some I'm getting some fashy rhetoric, but okay.
where I went through the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. It's a fantastic investigation of the nature of evil and good, human frailty, and the power of God. Listen now as we chronicle the handful of different ways that C.S. Lewis predicted
And
the
the
vices
power
and predations
of God.
of our modern culture. There are a bunch of large-scale arguments that Lewis makes in Screw Tape Letters. The first one is that Satan's best weapon is the quote-unquote real world. And this is right. I mean, if you talk to people who are secular, they'll always say that the spiritual world, God, is unreal. The real world is the material world. And then when you ask them about what's important to them, they'll talk about their feelings, which of course are inherently unreal in the same way the spiritual world is unreal. And this is a point that Lewis makes.
Wait, what? Hold on. Whoa! Jesus, we're already like 43 seconds in. What?
When you ask them about what's important to them, they'll talk about their feelings, which of course are
What? What's important to them? They'll talk about their feelings? Wait, who are you strawmanning? Sir. Who are you strawmanning? They'll talk about their feelings? Like, what's important to me is, I don't know, like, an example. Family. That's not a feeling. My cat is important to me. My cat is as real as anything on this planet, right? Personally, my brain is material and real. True. So this is, we're already, you know, starting off. We're starting off on a bad note, Ben. Mr. Facts and Logic. We're already not doing so hot. How's it going, the simulacra?
inherently unreal in the same way the spiritual world is unreal. And this is a point that Lewis.
Once again, this is like a wild straw man. Yeah, what's important to me is my freaking cat and my family and my friends, all of which are very real. Okay.
Makes is that the definition of real is capacious and changing on a regular basis from secularists.
What? No, I think that's what you're doing. I think that's what you're doing, Ben. So no one else could possibly cite their feelings when asked what's important to them? No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. Come on. Does Ben realize that C.S. Lewis was a devout Christian in the 1900s? Yeah, 100%. That's why he's citing this. 100%. That's why he's citing this garbage. I'm not saying that there isn't a person that would cite, quote, their feelings as something important. That's I never said that. You cited yourself as evidence that people don't talk about their feelings when asked about what's important to them. I'm saying that that's not the only thing. So you can imagine that people will talk about their feelings, right? Yes. I literally said none of what you're saying. I mean, you can try to keep up. You can try to keep up. Ben would like to have you think that that's... He's building a straw man. He's building a straw man.
So Lewis believes that man's draw to the divine can be rooted in reason, and that reason actually guides you towards something beyond yourself.
Wrong! You cannot reason your way into something that doesn't exist. I mean, I guess you could, like, logic your way into it, but it wouldn't be sound. It wouldn't be sound. But you're trying to debunk Ben's point here by suggesting he is a straw man, and yet you agree that people talk about their feelings when they're asked about what's important to them. Okay. Once again, it seems like you have a problem with understanding what I'm saying. I never said that is the only thing. I'm saying that he is presenting it as such.
It guides you toward the transcendent. That's an idea that I obviously agree with. I believe that the notion of free will, free choice in the universe, guides you toward the idea of there must be something beyond us, that if there's a logic to the universe, that guides you to the question of who is the chief logician, who made the rules, for example. Lewis makes the same point, and then he says that the
Wait, but that's not how you. That's completely out of base. What? That doesn't make sense at all. Ben, okay. You know that science exists. I do need a trigger warning for Shipibo. True. He's accurately characterizing that some people will talk about their feelings. Pretty clear. No, that's not what he said though. We can rewatch it if you want.
people who are secular, they'll always say that the spiritual world, God, is unreal. The real world is the material world. And then when you ask them about what's important to them, they'll talk about their feelings, which of course are inherently unreal in the same way the spiritual world.
Do you see? He didn't say some people might. And he even prefaced it by saying they'll always.
Away from the reality of something higher. This means, for example, that you have to get people to stop thinking about death. It says, Screwtape says, how disastrous for us is the continual remembrance of death, which war enforces. One of our best weapons, contented worldliness.
No, he prefaced it by saying they'll always. Stop being bad faith. He prefaced it by saying they'll always. You see, it's right there. Look, hey. Look at that.
Is unreal. The real world is the material world. And then when you ask them about what's important to them, they'll talk about their feelings, which of course are inherently unreal in the same way the spiritual world.
Always is not applied to people talking about their feelings. Yeah, they being secular is not people. Correct. Is Ben a theologian? He would like to think so. But no, he is not. Not in any real capacity. I mean, he cosplays as them. As one, I should say.
Hate every idea that suggests him, just as men in financial embarrassment hate the very sight of a passbook. Passbook meaning like a checkbook. So, in the world. And this is something that Catholic theologians talk about a lot. Life leads you to higher ideas. If you can prevent people from doing that sort of stuff, you end up with a very materialistic society. So what exactly does reality mean? Well, according to Screwtape, people ought to be taught that in all experiences which can make them happier or better, only the physical facts are real, while the spiritual elements are subjective. And in all experiences which can discourage or corrupt them, the spiritual elements are the main reality, and to ignore them is to be an escapist. Right? So the idea is that when you're thinking about death, that the only thing that is real is the death. Right? You're not supposed to look to you're not supposed to look to the spiritual element of death. Or if you look at something that makes you very happy, you're not supposed to look to the spiritual element of what makes you very happy. Just focus in on the pure materialism of the thing. And the goal is to enmesh mankind in the world. And this is something that Catholic theologians talk about a lot. The idea that the spiritual world, if you can enmesh it in reality too much, then you can bring people away from the reality of something higher. This means, for example, that you have to get people to stop thinking about death. It says, Screwtape says, how disastrous for us is the continual remembrance of death, which war enforces. One of our best weapons, contented worldliness, is rendered useless. In wartime, not even a human can believe that he is going to live forever. The material world, then, is the chief ally of Screwtape, because people desire not to think of God. God is a distraction. God has obligations. God has duties.
God is also subjective.
Screwtape says, human beings hate every idea that suggests him, just as men in financial embarrassment.
Death is more real than God. What?
Hate the very sight of a passbook. Passbook meaning like a checkbook. So the idea is that if you're
Ben
not
got his
thinking about
theology
duty, then
degree
you're
from
forced to think
Trump
about
U.
duty,
True.
you don't like
Prager
it
U.
very
No,
much.
hold on.
The other thing,
Ben Shapiro got his theology degree from PragerU. That's where he got it from.
that Screwtape tries to get you to focus in on is the future at all times. If you can focus in on the future at all times, then people will be very neglectful of the present. So, says Screwtape, it's far better to make them live in the future. The future is, of all things, the thing least like eternity. It is the most completely temporal part of time, for the past is frozen, it no longer flows. The present is all lit up with eternal rays. Hence the encouragement we have given to all those schemes of thought, like creative evolution, scientific humanism, or communism, which fix men's affections on the future on the very core of temporality. Hence nearly all vices are rooted in the future. So the idea is if you're thinking about the future, then you're not thinking about the spiritual consequences of the things you do in the here and now. You're thinking about the material consequences
What?
of the things that you do in the here and now. And that allows you
What? You shouldn't. Wait. Creative evolution, scientific humanism, and communism. What the fuck does all this have to do with each other? What? So you shouldn't think about the future? You shouldn't think about like the consequences of like what's going on right now? We shouldn't have decisions that we shouldn't make decisions based on what they do in the future? What? I own the Screw Tape Letters. I had a C.S. Lewis face. Oh man. Sorry to hear that, Michael Hassler. Ben should know that the churches change their teachings every decade, or new theories or theology or eras. Yeah.
on the very core of temporality. Hence, nearly all vices are rooted in the future.
And also, isn't this like... Also, communism isn't a vice? What? Okay. None of these are vices, by the way. I have no idea what this has to do with anything. Also, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can constantly, like, understand that you live in the present, but also understand that the future is a thing. And the past. You can study the past, too? What? Okay. Sure, Ben.
The idea is if you're thinking about the future, then you're not thinking about the spiritual consequences of the...
No, I'm thinking about the future. I can also simultaneously live in the here and now.
things you do in the here and now. You're thinking about the material consequences.
Again, I can think about the here and now, and I can also think about the future, and I can also learn from the past. What is the point of this? I don't know what this has to do with anything. It's always the same retreat. This is pretty simple to understand. What's the confusion? The confusion is that scientific humanism has nothing to do with communism, and creative evolution has nothing to do with scientific humanism. These three things are completely different concepts. He's double speaking again. Vices are rooted in the present, immediate satisfaction, not the future. True. That's another good point.
Consequences of the things that you do in the here and now. And that allows you to do bad things in the name of a quote unquote better future. Screwtape says the best thing you can do is convince people that their utopian thoughts are the things that are mandated by God. So on the one hand, you try to get people sunk in reality, and this drives them away from God. On the other hand, Screwtape advises Wormwood that people should be led to examine their own emotions constantly. Like if you can be narcissistically checking yourself all the time, you're going to end up without God. So if you feel wildly enthusiastic about becoming religious, then Wormwood ought to encourage people to wait for the anticlimax, right? Because you get enthusiastic about a thing, then you become less enthusiastic about the thing, and then you pounce. Quote, work hard then on the disappointment or anticlimax, which is certainly coming to the patient during his first few weeks as a churchman. In every department of life, it marks the transition from dreaming aspiration to laborious doing. The enemy takes this risk because he has a curious fantasy of making all these disgusting little human vermin into what he calls his free lovers and servants. Sons is the word he uses.
What?
So in other words, very often in life, we engage at the beginning of a task with great enthusiasm, and then the enthusiasm wears away. This happens all the time with a variety of tasks. And once that happens, that is when you encourage people to look into being morose, look into being depressed, to reject the spiritual aspect of their duty, to stop trying to take joy in the spiritual aspect of what they're doing and instead focus in on the fact that it's just sheer drudgery. So, for example, when it comes to prayer, human beings should be encouraged to seek a feeling of inspiration specifically because it's very hard to find. I mean, I pray 3 times a day. I've talked about this before. Fine.
It appears that what Ben is reading is a trail of behavior, activity, and thought that drives people away from spirituality. So while you can take these things on one by one and argue you can walk and chew gum, you're missing the forest. This is literally not an explanation of anything. Cool.
Finding a feeling of inspiration while you're praying can be really, really difficult. And so if you're constantly searching your feelings all the time, I'm not inspired enough, I'm not inspired enough, eventually like, I'm never getting inspired, and you stop doing it. And that's the goal. Whereas the reality is that when you're praying, you should stop searching inside your own feelings all the time. You should focus on the doing of the prayer. And then when eventually you stumble onto the feeling, it's an incredible thing. But at least you won't stop doing the thing when you lose the feeling. So if you focus in on the feeling, when the feeling goes short, you stop doing the duty.
Search your feelings, Ben. You know it to be true.
If you focus in on the duty, then eventually you come to feeling, is the case that Lewis is actually making. We'll get to more on this in just one second. First, it's no secret that the holiday season could be changing the way you buy a car. You should
shut up, Ben.
Abashed, unashamed. You should be very out of searching for a new or used car. Head on over to carzing.com/Ben today.
Hey, shut up.
Screwtape says that the rule of thumb for seducing mankind away from God is to encourage people to be unself-conscious when considering sin. So to be unabashed, unashamed. You should be very just out there and blasé about your sin, but to be self-conscious and awkward when you consider acts of faith. And this is modern society in a nutshell, right? The more you sin, the more proud you should be. You should engage in full-on festivals celebrating your sin. When it comes to going to church, you should be shy. I don't want to be...
What? What? You should have full-on festivals. You mean like Pride Month or Pride Fest or whatever the heck? Really? Yikes, dude. Okay.
Be judgmental. I don't want to make you feel ashamed. I don't want to make you feel bad about the fact that I go to synagogue on a routine basis. I don't want...
No one cares,
I know my
Ben.
yarmulke makes you feel uncomfortable.
Literally, no one gives a shit, Ben. 11 view Aaron can't at first hear what someone has to say, but has to chew fragments of fragments by rhetorically saying what and pretending not to understand what's been said. True, dude. Then why are you here? Dude, damn. Based. Awesome. Yeah, I know. Hard-hitting analysis. True. True, dude. And yet, you're still here. Does Ben go to church? 100%. He does. 100%. Or synagogue, whatever.
Comfortable as a Jew because it might make you think that you're not being religious enough. But
also,
when it comes
it's
to my sin,
12
man, I will tell you about my sins
Andy.
all day long.
Thank you.
We can all be comfortable. We can be the boys when we're talking about our sins. Other roads to hell include depression and anxiety, Screwtape says. When people are depressed, they are more likely to despair that their actions and...
What do you mean by sin? They should be more outward with their sin. Like, and he just made a mention of like festivals. Like what? If you're gay, then what? That's a sin? Yikes. Because that's the implication. If you're LGBTQ, that the implication is, well, that is a sin.
And thoughts
Not
even
good.
matter, and so they sort of sink into a malaise. This leads you to what C.S. Lewis calls grayness, right? If you're passionate about things, then very often you can find spirituality. But if you're gray about things, it's very hard to find spirituality.
I pity
He says the
Shapiro's
Christians
rabbi.
describe
True.
the enemy as one without whom nothing is strong. And nothing is very strong enough to steal away a man's best years, not in sweet sins, but in a dreary flickering of the mind over it knows not what and knows not why, in the gratification of curiosity so feeble that man is only half aware of them. It does not matter how small the sins are, provided that their cumulative effect is to edge the man away from the light and out into the nothing. I mean, is this a great description of the internet age, or is this a great description of the internet age? You spend all day on social media, consuming your time with absolute stupidities. You don't feel anything good about it. It just feels like bleh. And then when
Yeah,
you go
I
out,
know. I totally feel you, Ben. I have to watch your garbage. Trust me. I get it. Trust me, I get it. If I have to sit here and watch and, like, it's funny because, like, he says this while being, like, one of the biggest, conservative, online media, empires. He says this. Yeah, Mr. Facebook, consistently making the top 10 on Facebook and other social medias. Yeah, cool. Nice meme. No, this isn't to take any point of view from him.
outside in the sun, you still feel unenthusiastic. The goal of modern society is almost solely, apparently, to do the work of Wormwood here. The point that Lewis makes is that you're able to get at people through art, through popular culture, He says, we've engineered a great increase in the license which society allows to the representation of the apparent nude in art and its exhibition on the stage of the bathing beach. It's all fake, of course. The figures in the popular art are falsely drawn. The real women in bathing suits or tights are actually pinched in and propped up to make them appear firmer and more slender and more boyish than nature allows a full-grown woman to be. Yet at the same time, the modern world is taught to believe that it is being frank and healthy and getting back to nature. As a result, we are more and more directing the desires of men to something which does not exist, making the role of the eye in sexuality more and more important, and at the same time making its demands more and more impossible. What follows you can easily forecast. That is the greatest description of internet porn that has ever been written, and C.S. Lewis is writing this in 1942. Right, that you are setting up increasing expectations for what women are supposed to look like, what sex is supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like, and then people are engaging in it less and less. You're making the demands nearly impossible, and yet you are satisfying those demands with the virtual. I mean, that, again, C.S. Lewis is a man ahead of his time, because here's the thing. Sin is always the same. This is the thing that people always say about the Bible, and it's so stupid. They'll say, oh, the Bible, it's archaic. The Bible...
Well, it's not just archaic. It's a book full of gobbledygook. It's full of contradictions and fantasy. That's what it is. Presented as some kind of ultimate truth.
Bible's talking about things have changed. You know what has never changed? Human nature. C.S. Lewis could have written this 4,000 years ago. It would not have mattered. Human nature does not change. Human nature is the same as it was thousands of years ago. The only thing that has changed is that we believe that we have been able to overcome human nature, which of course is extraordinary arrogance and silliness. It turns out that all of the systems that we built to hem in human nature, all the systems that we built in order to channel human nature to its best available pursuits, we've exploded all of those in the belief that we have created a new human already. Now, there are a lot of ideologies that say that you can create a new human. Marxism says you can create a new human. Change the economic conditions, change the man.
No. Human nature is plastic. It's shaped by societies we live in. Yep. It's, well, mostly human nature, yeah, it's altered by our environment. Our environment can affect human nature. Yes.
Secular humanism says the same thing, that if you just get rid of God, then magically a new human being will flourish. Religion says no. Human beings are exactly the
What? If you just get rid of God?
systems that we built in order to channel human nature to its best available pursuits. We've exploded all of those in the belief that we have created a new human already. Now, there are a lot of ideologies that say that you can create a new human. Marxism says you can create a new human. Change the economic conditions, change the man. Secular humanism says the same thing, that if you just get rid of God, then magically a new human being will flourish. Religion says no. Human beings are exactly the same as they were when Adam ate the apple with Eve in the garden. They're exactly the same, and nothing
Something that never happened, by the way,
has
obviously.
changed. The only thing that has changed is that we've built institutions and systems in order to channel us toward our better selves. And when you blow up all those institutions, what you end up with is something very, very bad, which is precisely what has happened. Screwtape also talks about how human relationships can undermine faith as well, because human beings have a really tough time living with each other. And so most sin is not between man and God. Most sin is between man and man. When he talks about the relations in marriage, for example, Lewis is right on the money. He says, in civilized life, domestic hatred usually expresses itself by saying things which would appear quite harmless on paper. The words are not offensive, but in such a voice or at such a moment that they're not far short of a blow in the face. Your patient must demand that all his own utterances are to be taken at face value and judged simply on the actual words, while at the same time judging all his mother's utterances with the fullest and most oversensitive interpretation of the tone and the context and the suspected intention. This is true in virtually all human relationships, right? You say something, and you say it in kind of a nasty way. And then when somebody gets offended, you're like, hey, what did I say? What did I do? Did I say? No, and I'll read back the words that I said. It's like, well, no, the tone mattered an awful lot right there. By the way, this is one of the reasons why a piece of Shapiro advice here. Try to have as many conversations via voice as you can and not via text. Text is open to misinterpretation. Voice really, really is not. But we do have a double standard. We insist that everybody interpret us in the best light, and then we interpret everybody else in the worst possible light.
Who's we? Is he going to start quoting Nietzsche? I would not. No.
And then his descriptions of men and women are
This is a theological segment.
also extraordinarily accurate. This is one of my favorite sections of the book. He says, a woman means by unselfishness chiefly taking trouble for others. A man means not giving trouble to others. As a result, a woman who is quite far gone in the enemy's service will make a nuisance of herself on a larger scale than any man, except those whom our Father has dominated completely. And conversely, a man will live long in the enemy's camp before he undertakes as much spontaneous work to please others as a quite ordinary woman may do every day. In other words, women tend to be very helpful. And if Satan can get a hold of them, then intrusive and invasive. And men tend to be very blasé, which means that they allow people their space. But also, if Satan can get a hold of them, then they are completely disconnected from other human beings and selfish.
That's not true. What? That's not true either. You can be I don't know, you can be like a very pious person and have the inverse of the characteristics he's describing. This makes no sense. This Lockean tabula rasa picture of human nature isn't entirely correct. I think that your environment can shape your nature or your personality. I don't understand. That's not a really controversial statement. Mr. 5-Day Account.
A sensible human once said, quote, if people knew how much ill-feeling unselfishness occasions, it would not be so often recommended from the pulpit. And again, she's the sort of woman who lives for others. You can always tell the others by their hunted expression. Screwtape also talks to Wormwood about the misinterpretation of the word love, how love has come to mean sexual desire, and how we have moved away from marriage as a duty-based relationship to the voluntarization of marriage. Screwtape says, quote, in humans, the enemy has gratuitously associated affection between the parties with sexual desire.
Yes. It would be favorable if we had a society that allows us to choose whether or not we want to participate in an archaic structure. Yes. Yes, ostensibly we would want a more freer society so that we can choose whether or not, and not feel forced into these outdated structures.
He has also made the offspring dependent on the parents and given the parents an impulse to support it, thus producing the family, which is like the organism, only worse. For the members are more distinct, yet also united in a more conscious and responsible way. The whole thing, in fact, turns out to be simply one more device for dragging in love. The truth is that wherever a man lies with a woman there, whether they like it or not, a transcendental relation is set up between them which must be eternally enjoyed or eternally endured. From the true statement that this transcendental relation was intended to produce, and if obediently entered into, too often will produce affection in the family. Humans can be made to infer the false belief that the blend of affection, fear, and desire, which they call being in love, is the only thing that makes marriage either happy or holy. So in other words, family is a relation that is created by nature, but if we can reduce it, if the devil can reduce that down to the subjective feeling of love, then the minute that you lose the love, you lose the duty. So, obviously, this is what's happened with regard to marriage. It's with regard to... This is how the slogan, love is love, has ended up being a definition of marriage. And yet it has no boundaries, right? Love is love could include bigamy. Love is love could include polygamy.
Yes.
Love is love can include two brothers getting married, right? Love is love has no definition, because obviously love is not, in fact, love. Love in the traditional sense meant duty. Love in the traditional...
But duty is a different word. What? Duty is a different word. And if that's how you feel about your partner, Jesus. Your environment can shape it massively. I don't disagree with that, but to say human nature is entirely plastic is false. Humans have a unique and innate capacity, capacities for love, freedom, and creativity and language. Yes. These capacities don't change with our environment. They're baked into the wiring of our brains. I don't think the Simulacra said that, though. But okay.
Sense meant familial relations between man, woman, and children. If you redefine love as that subjective feeling within you, then love, I suppose, is true. The problem is that is a complete redefinition. It is a robbing marriage of its identity and then wearing it around as a skin suit. Screwtape also points out that one easy way to hell is to get people to disregard the individual human beings in front of them in the name of mankind writ large. This obviously is the project of the left, which is willing to completely run over its neighbors in order to pursue a better world for everybody else.
Yeah.
Screwtape
And of
says
course,
the great thing is to direct the malice of his immediate neighbors.
The church wouldn't do that. Right, Ben?
Whom he meets every day, and to thrust his benevolence out to the remote circumference to people he doesn't know.
There has never been a time period in history where the church had that type of attitude. Right, Ben? No? Religion doesn't work like that, right? Right, Ben?
No. The malice thus becomes wholly real and the benevolence largely imaginary. There's something I say about people. I always say that I'm sort of a not people person. But
Oh, we know. But yeah, this is kind of like the whole idea of whatever every accusation is a confession, because that's what literally religion does. You are not an individual. You are part of the bigger picture. For God or whatever.
that's actually not particularly true. And my thoughts about mankind at large are not particularly generous. I don't think that human beings are saints. I don't think that human beings are devils. I think that we are somewhere in between. When it comes to interpersonal, like day-on-day relations, I get along with, I love individual human beings. Individual human beings are great. It's the species that's a problem. And when you start to think that the human species is filled with joy and wonder, but the individuals who live next door to you are the worst people in the entire world, you can do some pretty terrible things to your neighbors. One of Screwtape's other tools, one of the tools that he likes to use as well, is the human incapacity to understand the divine. So God obviously has to limit his power in our lives in terms of being right in our face all the time in order for us to have free will. This means a sort of unbridgeable gap between human beings and the divine. And so we have a picture in our head of what God is, and that picture is not real. And then when God doesn't manifest in the way that we think the picture ought to manifest, we get angry at God or we say that he doesn't exist.
Well, he doesn't exist, Ben. You made it up.
I think
He. Interesting. GOP MAGA and evangelicals forget God, the creator of one believes, is a deeply personal choice, plus morals and morals are not completely, absolutely controlled by organized religion. Yeah, not only that, like, yeah, just like the attempt to somersault this idea of like, oh well, you know, if God doesn't manifest the exact way you want it, then you don't believe. Well, it's because he's not real. He isn't real. Do you see, like, the characteristics ascribed to God are so human-like. I mean, well, because they were created, he was created by humans.
he's an old man in the sky who's a gumball machine, and you pray to him and he gives you what you want. That's not how God works. So one of the big questions that you're supposed to not ask is really the nature of God, because you're not really able to comprehend God. There are certain things you can comprehend about God.
Wait, so we're not able to comprehend God, but somehow he's real, but we're just not able to comprehend him? I mean, he presumably God is omnipotent, right? Omniscient. Then why doesn't he give us the ability to understand? Wouldn't that solve the issue? I mean, God's all powerful, right? And the issue is that we just can't possibly comprehend. Okay, well, God being all powerful could just kind of give us that ability. The summary judgment of the left is are infantile. It can only take so much watching and listening to a human verbally masturbate with no goal in mind. Yeah, I know. We're almost done though.
The idea that God is generous in creating humanity. The idea that God has bound himself to a particular logic of the world. Right? These are things that Aquinas talks about, or Maimonides. But the idea that you can know God at the most intimate level, obviously the Bible itself says that this is not the case, right? Moses, in the book of Exodus, specifically asks God whether he can see his glory, and God says, if you can't see my glory and live, he says, you can see my back. The idea being you can identify what I am by sort of my actions in the world, but you can't actually see my face. You're not capable of understanding who God totally is.
Then what's the point? Ben is too much word salad and no theology degree. Oh yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you.
Attempts to delve too deeply into what God is ends up in what Screwtape calls materialist magic. Quote, if we can produce our perfect work.
Wait. If we can't think, is the problem that we're asking too many questions? And the problem being that we'll arrive to the conclusion that you're full of shit? Is that the issue? Wait a minute, can you rewind that?
But you can't actually see my face. You're not capable of understanding who God totally is.
Is that the fundamental problem? Is that if we ask, too many questions, then we'll realize that we'll realize how bullshit this is? Huh.
Attempts to delve too deeply into what God is.
Attempts to delve too deeply into God, into what God is. Hey, whoa, listen, folks. Listen. You can't ask too many questions. You can't stop critically thinking. Leave your brains at the door. Leave the critical thinking at the door. Enter the cult. That is the church. That is religion. That is Christianity and all these Abrahamic religions and whatnot. Leave critical thinking. Don't ask questions. And just accept what Ben is telling us at face value. Please don't ask any questions. Please.
Ends up in what Screwtape calls materialist magic. Quote, if we can...
if it ends up in materialist magic. That's the ultimate end result of asking questions about, like, God and whatnot. That is hilarious. That's actually where we're at. Yeah, what is truth and what is God? Well, but we can't really ask that, because then we'll end up in, like, the materialistic magic. We'll end up in some materialistic magic and we'll end up in hell, Maple, so we can't really ask that. Religion's a very broad thing, radically different. A theocrat like Ben and, say, Cornel West. True. Hold on. That's too deep for me. All I care about is that I don't run out of coffee. True. How's it going, Ryan? That is a good meme. That is a good meme. That is a good meme. I'd rather listen to Cornel West than Ben Shapiro, that's for sure. True.
Produce our perfect work. The materialist magician, the man not using but veritably worshipping what he vaguely calls forces while denying the existence of spirits, then the end of the war will be in sight. So the materialist magician...
The end of the war? What?
...in this world is the person who believes in larger forces like physics or global warming or evolution or disease as controlling our fates while denying that God has any say in the matter whatsoever.
But he doesn't. So wait, we can blame global warming on God? This is just God's will? Yeah, like, this is the problem, Ben. This is the problem. We can't ascribe any responsibility when we have your thought process over here. Let's rewind that for a second, because this is actually important.
You can't actually see my face. You're not capable of understanding who God
totally is.
All right,
shut up. Hold on.
Magic, quote, if we can produce our perfect work, the materialist magician, the man not using but veritably worshipping what he vaguely calls forces while denying...
Well, yeah, he is a preacher, isn't he? He's a, I don't know if he's a preacher. Isn't he a reverend or something like... Isn't it? Reverend? I'm not sure.
The existence of spirits, then the end of the war will be in sight.
All right, hang on.
The materialist magician in this world...
This one's important, Chad. He's gonna tell us. He's gonna give away the game right here.
Is the person who believes in larger forces like physics or global warming or evolution or disease as controlling our fates. Well,
Yes. Because they do. We are bound by the laws of physics, Ben, as far as we understand them. If we find out more information and find out that we are wrong about a certain thing, then sure, we'll update it. But we're still bound by these laws of physics. And like, yeah, Ben, he is Christian though. Okay, gotcha. All right, then I retract that statement. I thought he was a some kind of reverend or something. Never mind. Ignore me. Is Ben a determinist? I don't know. I can tell you that Ben is indeed a clown. That I can tell you. Or evolution, which, yeah, evolution happens. It's a biological like thing. It's a thing that happens, and we can document it and have evidence for it. This isn't God. This isn't evidence of God. Or disease. Yeah, like if God was real, then there wouldn't be such a thing as cancer or anything like that. His father was a Baptist preacher, and I think Cornell did attend a seminary. Okay, gotcha. Okay, maybe I'm just kind of messing around with info there in my head.
While denying that God has any say in the matter.
While denying that God has any say in the matter. Well, if he did, then I mean, arguably, he would want to do something about it. I mean, the way the climate crisis is heading, that's pretty bad. Thousands of people die. Shapiro just sucks at reading, among other things, but yes. He also sucks at creating logical arguments. Presumably, if God, because he's basically implying that this is God's will. Well, then that's kind of fucked up, isn't it? If this is God's will, that's kind of fucked up. Astro 2D subscribing with a tier 1 sub for 6 months. Let's freaking go. Thank you. I appreciate that. It seems like he's conveniently arguing against free will / responsibility in humans for climate change. Right. Yes. I was getting to that. I alluded to that earlier. I said we're eliminating the responsibility. We're eliminating the responsibility that we have. Yes, you're absolutely correct. I was getting to that. Maybe I got sidetracked. But I made a mention before we rewinded this. Yes, you're 100% correct, and we're gonna get to that. Typically, Christians believe in free will, though, because it explains why God forces us to suffer in the world to give us choices. Right, but then that means, if that's the case, and that means God is kind of messed up, right? Because like, wouldn't you want intervention at certain points? And like, if he can't intervene because he believes in free will or whatnot, then like, damn, dude, maybe he's not all that omnipotent. God murdered Job's whole family over a stupid bet with the devil. Dude's a sociopath. Yeah, hey, that's an oddly human characteristic, Rye. That's an oddly human characteristic. Have you seen a video with Owens and McGinnis and West? Hassan lost a Twitch stream because of it for 2 days. Oh, that's what it was? Gotcha. Will my bins still get collected tomorrow with the government shutdown? I don't know. This is in God's hands right now. That's in God's hands. To be fair, it's not meant to be interpreted literally. It's yeah, but that's kind of a cop out. Because like then what? Okay, but the point being, it's the same. The point is, it would still I would still reach the same conclusion, right? If it's just like kind of a euphemism for something, that there's like a hidden that there's a hidden lesson behind it. Like, still, isn't that putting like a lot of humanistic characteristics to the God? That's a little weird. That was Satan, not exactly the Christian devil, but an angel who is challenging faith. Right, whose role was challenging faith. Yeah, that's the ultimate evil, the simulacra. The ultimate evil, and Ben just literally told you. Ben just literally told you the ultimate evil, the ultimate problem is just asking too many questions. Is to challenge it. Because then you realize how much full of shit they are. Academic reading of the Bible versus some asshole preacher, religious reader is totally different ballgame. Maybe, but like I said, I would still argue, even to the highest like degree, that this is awfully presented as a human characteristic for some kind of overarching like omniscient force, right? That's why we used to burn people for questioning the Bible. True. If you study quantum physics, you can make the argument that everything is already determined. Example, you could measure every particle mass, velocity, and spin. You could predict the future perfectly. Yeah, theoretically on paper. This is true. I felt quantum mechanic refutes determinism in some sense because we cannot know these things. Something fundamental in the universe denies us that possibility. Whatever they take from the Bible is just morally evil and effed up. Yeah, but like, damn. I mean, isn't that like a verdict then on the Bible? Like, we don't need the Bible to understand these things. We don't need the Bible to understand the importance of like, loyalty to your family or something. I don't know, whatever. Maybe it's not all that special. Maybe it's just humans writing shit down. Writing like all these, stories of fantasy and whatnot. So maybe it ain't that serious. And maybe, first of all, it's not the new kid on the block. It's not the only kid on the block, that you can learn, these lessons from, right? So, it's just a text and people can use it for various purposes. Cornell uses it for love and Shapiro, well, bigotry. Yep. But like, I don't know. If you can arrive at these conclusions, I would say that's a verdict on that. Because like, if I were to make, if I were to be a little bit more careful, I would prefer if people reading my book wouldn't reach those conclusions. I would amend the statement with stating that everything is probable and only by observing can anything be known. Yeah, sure. So you can use any text and wrap it to whatever you wish. I mean, sure. Well, not necessarily, because people oohed Marx text to create Stalinism. Yeah, but I would argue, I would argue that, well, Marx didn't say to make a, like the whole point of Marx's theory was to create a moneyless and classless society, right? The whole point was that there was no centralized structure. So like, I don't know. Well, God ain't real, so he ain't saying shit. True.
Whatsoever. It is sort of the notion that the environment is taking revenge on us. The world is taking revenge.
The environment isn't taking revenge, Ben. This is just the consequences of our actions. Like, it's like, damn, religion is such brainworms. Holy shit. Religion is such a brainworms. The environment isn't taking revenge on humans, Ben. These are just the consequences of our actions. But of course, Ben would have to admit that. Ben would have to admit that. Great, now I lost my train of thought. Hold on. Marx wrote pretty much nothing about what communist society would look like or plans on how to achieve it. Marx was yes, that's true. Marx was critiquing capitalism, not creating systems of government. True.
So the materialist magician in this world is the person who believes in larger forces like physics or global warming or
I mean, all of these, yeah, like, imagine the material magician. Yeah, sure, dude. The person who believes in, physics, which is just math, and evolution, which is also a thing that can be proven with evidence and has been proven with evidence, and climate change, which also has been proven with decades of evidence. Yes. Yeah, right. But hey, listen, right? Stop. You cannot question anything, okay? That's the key to the whole thing. Stop questioning it before you turn into a materialistic magician where you find out how the actual magnetism works before, you understand how, the atoms work. Stop. You better stop asking questions, right? Before you turn into a materialistic magician. Religion makes you think that inanimate forces never mind feelings and therefore can take revenge. And also, hello, I'm new here. Howdy. This is absolute clown world up in here.
pollution or disease as controlling
Or disease. Also, a pretty real and studied thing. Diseases are real? What?
our fates while denying that God has any say in the matter whatsoever.
Yeah, because we can trace these things. We know what's causing and what's driving the climate crisis. We know these things. We've had decades of studies on these things. It isn't God. It's us. My favorite magicians are the ones that show you how the trick work on YouTube. True. I forget who said this quote, but you can't reason with someone out of something they didn't reason themselves into. Yep. That's true.
It is sort of the notion that the environment is taking revenge on us. The
Nope.
world is taking revenge on us. It's sort of an animistic philosophy that separates us off from God.
So you're saying that God is driving climate change? Damn, what a fucked up God. I see he's citing C.S. Lewis. I don't know anything about his Christian apologetics writings, but he's an Anglican, and they're extremely liberal in contrast to whatever Ben Shapiro is. Ben Shapiro is a conservative. He's a pretty hard right conservative.
Screwtape also says that the notion of complete human autonomy, apart from God, is ridiculous. Screwtape laughs much.
No, it's the opposite. One is more autonomous without the chains of religion.
Much of the modern resistance to chastity comes from men's belief that they own their bodies, those vast and perilous estates pulsating with the energy that made the world, in which
Yes, we own our bodies. Yes, everybody owns their own body. That's the point. Bodily autonomy. Hello? Weren't we just arguing for free will just like 5 seconds ago?
they find themselves without their consent and from which
Sorry, that was chat. Never mind.
they are ejected at the pleasure of another. Again, this is a pretty good point. We tend to think of our bodies as our own. Did you ask to be born? Were you asked about when you wish to die? Do you have permission? Does your body take your permission every time you get sick or when you get cancer? The notion of
So is what? Wait. Whoa. Ben? We're getting into creepy territory, Ben. Because I mean, we're there's still like 20 seconds left on the video. Are we gonna argue against the concept of consent? I mean, we're a skip and a hop from using this same logic to argue against consent, which conservatives are very, very much in favor of doing so. Most religious people basically force a limit of knowledge on themselves so they can face the existential crisis we agnostic atheists deal with when we turn 30. Yeah. Yeah, but you're not supposed to you're not supposed to question it. That's the problem, as Ben told us. Is he assuming my body is a separate thing from me? I don't know. It seems like you're not supposed to be able to control your own body. He's setting the groundwork without saying it. That you actually don't control your own body. It might be that they also provide useful interpretations of questions we might have about the existence, metaphysics, or useful critiques of reason and empiricism.
Complete bodily autonomy. That may be true from other human beings. It is not true in terms of godly duty. I hope you
In
enjoyed.
terms of godly duty. Yeah, submit. Cool. All right. You heard it here, folks. Submit. Your body doesn't really belong to you. And if you question things too much, then you become a materialistic magician. Yeah. Cool. A materialistic magician who believes in things like, physics and climate change. Yeah. Very enlightening. Thank you, Ben. Jesus. And now we are all less smart for watching that. Cool. I heard 7 lectures and text analysis on C.S. Lewis, and Ben Shapiro is not even close. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just very weary about all these religious types. But I get what Shapiro's trying to do here. He's trying to make a religious argument from reason, which is what C.S. Lewis is famous for in his writings on apologetics. But I haven't read his Christian shit, so I don't know anything about it. Yeah, but the problem that we're having is that Ben isn't making any really reasonable arguments or logical arguments, right? He's coming at it as if he's your typical Christian, well, in this case traditional, I guess. Does he consider himself an Orthodox Jew, Jewish person? I don't know, whatever. These fundamentalist Abrahamic kind of religious types. And that completely falls flat. That doesn't really fly. And to try to make religious arguments from reason, you may make logical arguments, but they won't be sound because religion is bullshit. Religion is on the basis that you have to accept things on faith, on nothing. And it kind of conditions you to not really investigate these things. I can't say Jewish orthodoxy on this channel. Yeah, our auto mod is very, very tough. Yeah, our auto mod is very, very tough because, Nazis. He's an Orthodox Jew. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, if you notice, we've had to clamp down, on links because of, as I explained, some clown decided to DDoS the stream, and there was a time, it doesn't happen as often anymore, but there was a time where we would get a lot of Nazis. So, yeah. the neo-Nazi people come in talking about the New World Order. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, you get dog whistles. It's just an excuse to provide political, moral, and social arguments for whatever the Daily Wire is doing. Yeah. Meta's ad practices ruled illegal under EU law. The decision is one of the most consequential issued under the EU's landmark data protection law and creates a new business headwind for the social media giant. Meta, Facebook, has suffered a major defeat on Wednesday that could severely undercut its Facebook and Instagram advertising business after the EU regulators found it illegally forced users to effectively accept personalized ads. The decision, including a fine of 390 million euros or $414 million, has the potential to require Meta to make costly changes to its advertising-based business in the EU, one of its largest markets. Oh no. Anyways, the ruling is one of the most consequential judgments since the 27-nation bloc, home to roughly 450 million people, enacted a landmark data privacy law aimed at restricting the ability of Facebook and other companies from collecting information about users without their prior consent. Something that should kind of be par for the course, but okay. The law took effect in 2018. The EU will also fine Elon Musk for breaking EU law by censoring journalists on their platform. True. I heard about that. Jackum, thank you. Jack83, thank you for the follow. Welcome. I haven't used Facebook in like 12 years, not because of privacy, but too many baby pictures and political slacktivism. True. I honestly, like Facebook, I barely use it. Alio with another 10 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Oh man, Coney 2012. Wow. I actually almost forgot about that. I just, honestly, I don't really use Facebook. It's not like a thing that I really use. I don't post anything on my Facebook. I don't post anything on like my timeline or anything like that. Nor do I really use it to contact people except for like Messenger, and that's for like a specific use. I hate Facebook Moments, and it's showing me a picture of me and an ex-girlfriend I swear I deleted. That's weird, especially if you deleted it. Facebook shouldn't have that. That's kind of weird. Facebook messages me about my family's birthdays only. Yeah, I hate, now that you mentioned it, Astro, I hate that thing where it like reminds you every year, or like if there's like an event, it'll be like, yeah, hey, remember when you like did this like cringe ass, remember when you did this cringe ass shit like 10 years ago? No. I didn't for a reason. I didn't remember for a reason. Yeah, well, here it is anyways. Oh, if they're still... gotcha. That's creepy. Facebook shouldn't have that capability. Like, if you're deleting a post, like, or deleting a photo, whatever. Remember that time you used the... Oh, God, no, please, no. Jesus Christ. Remember when you did that cringe shit back in, like, I don't know, 2012? I remember Kyle getting some heat for that. Kyle? Kalinsky? Oh, Kalinsky. You can filter memories for things you don't want to see or dates? Huh. Is there a catch-all where I can be like, listen, bro, I don't want any of it. He said the N-word with the soft A. Oh, jeez. Kyle, damn it. I think I vaguely remember that. I vaguely remember seeing something like this happened a little while ago, didn't it? Because like this isn't like a recent news. This might have been maybe a couple of years ago that I heard this, or is like, I mean, I don't know. It's for a joke. I'm just laughing at the fact that Facebook digs it up. Oh, okay, gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I remember hearing about this. Just things you regret from like 15 years back. Yeah, remember when you're 50 pounds lighter and in shape? Yeah, remember when you like did X, Y, or Z? Like, no, I didn't. And there's probably a reason for that, but thanks. Thank you, Facebook. Well, the thing is, like, I obviously, as part of being human beings, we all do shit we regret. The question is, can you look like if you've done some like cringe ass shit and you look back and you're like, damn, that was cringe. That was cringe and wrong. So like we don't do that anymore. And you can kind of like reflect and grow and learn. Yeah, that's all part of like the that's all part of the deal, you know? We still might catch ourselves saying things that are completely off when it happens. Yeah. Like I said, it's accepting or like understanding, like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, it was fucked up. Let's not do that. You know, like if you can self-reflect and understand, especially understand why it is wrong, you know, whatever it is. I don't know, even like when you fight with like significant others or when you fight with friends or whatever, like even when you hurt people that you might not even understand, or sorry, you might not even think that you did. You know, sometimes certain words might hurt people in certain scenarios, and I think that like, yeah, if we can reflect, especially when we like talk to each other, yeah, I mean it's kind of an important thing. I think that the totality of a person and context matters for me, and that's it. And if it's not repeatable or predictable behavior, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it depends. Yeah. The case hinges on how Meta receives legal permission from users to collect their data for personalized advertising, which, why is this a thing? That's kind of a problem. I don't think that like personalized targeted ads to this degree should be legal, period. I think it's incredibly creepy. The company's terms of service agreement, the very lengthy statement that users must accept to gain access to services like Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp include language. Our biggest growth happens on how we learn to deal with our mistakes. True. It's always been a thing that's primary existence of that corporation. True. No, hold on. No, I mean like it is the culmination of what Facebook is. But I don't think that they should be allowed to have this level, you know? Learning never ends and we'll F up. It's humanity. True. Facebook was literally created to have a database of hot women created by some like creepy dude. Yeah. But like that, well, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe like that was the end. Maybe that literally was the only like conclusion. So I mean I can concede that. Literally a hot or not clone. Yeah. In Ireland's Data Privacy Board, which serves as Meta's main regulator in the EU because the company's EU headquarters are in Dublin, said EU authorities have determined that placing the legal consent within the terms of service essentially forces a user to accept the personalized ads, violating the EU law known as the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. Meta has 3 months to outline how it will comply with the ruling. The decision does not specify what the company must do, but could result in Meta's allowing users to choose whether they want their data used for targeted promotions. That should be like the first thing. I mean, like if you make a Facebook In a ethical scenario, the first thing that needs to happen is a huge pop-up and be like, hey, you can opt in or out of that. If a large number of users choose not to share their data, it would cut off one of the most valuable parts of Meta business, information about a user's digital history, such as what videos on Instagram prompt a person to stop scrolling, or what kind of links a person clicks when browsing Facebook feeds. It's used by marketers to get ads in front of people who are most likely to buy. Jesus, this is some nefarious shit. Like, I'm sorry. It's just creepy. The more you think about it. Bring back MySpace. True. The practice helped Meta generate $118 billion in revenue in 2021. The judgment puts 5 to 7% of Meta's overall advertising revenue at risk, according... What? Just 5%? 5 to 7%? This could be a major gut punch. Yes, that's right. Instead of 118 billion, it's only going to make like 90 something. What a shame. The penalty contrasts with regulations in the US where there is no federal data privacy law. Maybe there should be. And only a few states like California have taken steps to create rules similar to those in the EU. But any changes that Meta makes as a result of the ruling could affect users in the US. Many tech companies apply EU rules globally because it's easier, because that is easier to put in effect than limiting them to Europe. The EU judgment is the latest business headwind facing Meta, which is already grappling with a major drop in advertising revenue because of a change made by Apple in 2021 that gave iPhone users the ability to choose whether advertisers could track them. Jesus. Meta said last year that Apple's changes would cost it about $10 billion in 2022, with consumer surveys suggesting that a clear majority of users have blocked tracking. Yeah, no shit. Meta's struggles come as it is trying to diversify its business from social media into the virtual reality world known as the metaverse, which is, to put it lightly, a fucking failure. The company's stock price has plummeted more than 60% in the past year, and it has laid off thousands of employees. Yeah. Remember that Second Thought video that we watched? Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? That were like, yeah, maybe a handful of these like incredibly powerful and wealthy capitalists, maybe their decisions affect a lot of people, and maybe they aren't all that. I'm just saying. Maybe Elon Musk isn't Iron Man. Yeah, just literally burning money. EU has a strict right to be forgotten law, yet we need that shit. We need some like serious reform on that. 100%. Meta struggles come in. Wednesday's announcement relates to complaints filed against Meta in 2018. Meta said that it would appeal the decision setting up what could be a prolonged legal fight that tests the power of the GDPR and how aggressively regulators use the law to force companies to change their business practices. We strongly believe our approach respects the GDPR, and we're therefore disappointed by these decisions. It doesn't, though. Privacy groups hailed the result as a long overdue response to companies gobbling up as much data as possible of people online in order to deliver personalized ads. But critics also saw the more than 4 years it took to reach a decision as a sign that enforcement of the GDPR is weak and slow. European enforcement has not yet delivered on the promise of the GDPR, said Johnny Ryan, a privacy rights activist who's a senior fellow at the Irish Council for Civil Liberties. The judgment signals that big tech may be in for a far bumpier ride. Within the EU, there has been disagreement about how to enforce the GDPR. Irish authorities said they had initially ruled that Meta's use of terms of service for permission was legally sufficient to comply with this law, but they were overruled by a board made up of representatives from all EU countries. I always say no and then run into an app that won't let me use it unless that's part of the agreement is checked off. So no matter what, these big companies get their way. on collecting data unless you truly go out of your way to not let it happen. Oh yeah, 100%. Yes. Also, yes. To piggyback off that comment, yes, right. It's by design. You realistically have no choice. There's so much choice can't literally track it all. That's why the TOS are boring snooze fest. Or those accept and reject cookies that have like 20 different untick options. Yep. It's to use a debate bro term, it's the equivalent of gish galloping. It would be the equivalent of gish galloping. Hey, what now? I don't know what that word means. Oh, okay, gotcha. Woo! I learned something today. Yeah. I looked at I just like I just did a quick Google. Yeah. Gotcha. There has been a lack of regulatory clarity on this issue, and the debate among regulators and policymakers around which legal basis is most appropriate in a given situation has been ongoing for some time. Helen Dixon, the head of Ireland Data Protection Commission, said regulators must be an honest broker and not give in demands from privacy activists who are pushing for rulings that would not stand up to legal challenges. We won't achieve results by simply seeking to rewrite the GDPR as we would have liked to have seen it written. There are some signs in the EU of a broader stepped-up effort to crack down on the world's largest tech companies. New EU laws that were passed last year aimed at stopping anti-competitive practices in the tech industry and forcing social media companies to more aggressively police user-generated content on their platform. Last month, Amazon agreed to make key changes to how products are sold on the platform as part of a settlement with EU regulators to avoid antitrust charges. In November, Meta was fined roughly $275 million by the Irish authorities for a data leak discovered last year that led to personal information of more than 500 million Facebook users being published online. In 2023, the European's top court, the European Court of Justice, is also expected to rule in cases that could lead to more changes into Meta's data collection practices. Yet many believe the enforcement has not matched the rhetoric of EU policymakers about strong tech regulation. Max Schrems, an Austrian data protection activist whose nonprofit organizations NOYB filed this complaint in 2018 that led to Wednesday's announcement, said thousands of data protection complaints still need to be addressed. On paper, you have all these rights, but in reality, the enforcement is just not happening. Damn. Imagine caring about antitrust laws. Lamau in America. True.
Bringing out the best in your team is hard.
Hey, whoa. Shh. Stop trying to sell me whatever the heck you're trying to sell me, YouTube. Alright. We're gonna do this one briefly. New COVID strain is the most transmissible. I mean, yeah. There's a huge struggle between keeping antitrust laws and slowly making them as ineffective as possible. Yep. The coronavirus Omicron strain, XBB.1.5, XBB.1.5, which has become the dominant strain in the US in just a matter of weeks, could drive a new wave of cases. The WHO official told reporters on Wednesday were concerned about its growth advantage, in particular in some countries in Europe and northeast part of the US. Yeah, lo and behold, we're still, dealing with mutations and variations of this thing. The question is whether or not these the question is whether or not or I guess really how long will these boosters be effective? And yeah, the pandemic ain't over. It's just gonna join the seasonal flu kind. Yeah, eventually. Yeah, if it's not already there, and it's just gonna become endemic. Cool. Great job, everybody. Just be careful. Be careful and make sure you're up to date. That's it. I think the world is endemic. Yeah, the word is endemic. Yeah, endemic. Yeah, the regular boosters had to be updated. That's why you have the bivalent ones, the ones with the little two hybrid ones. Yeah, that's the new one. So but yeah, eyes open. This isn't, going away. Folks in California are currently experiencing another atmospheric river. It has been wild, to say the least. I lost track. I know there's a new Chinese mutation, but I don't know what it's called. I don't know. It happens so fast now. And this is just a reminder of, while not every specific incident not every specific incident is linked to climate change, what we can say is that, like, the trends of all these abnormal weather events the trends of this are clear. Yes, bivalent. There you go. It's raining all the time and it's bad for my arthritis. Sheesh, it's not normal December weather. No, like, none of this is normal in terms of how, like, this is supposed to work. But yeah, this is just to kind of illustrate before we get into the last thing. My understanding is that the new mutation in New York has nothing to do with China. True.
Bad and often terrifying news about climate change, doomsday may seem like it's just around the corner. But is it? There are electric cars, solar panels, and wind turbines everywhere. Still, we've wasted a lot of time arguing over if and why.
Who knows, Rye? I don't know. Like, what the outcome of that might be.
Global warming is even real, let alone a priority. So how are we doing? Well, in the early 2010s, a set of emission scenarios called RCPs, ranging from very stringent climate policy to no climate policy at all, was developed to represent what warming could look like by 2100. To get an idea of how we're doing, we asked experts in the field which one of these scenarios looks most likely today. These scenarios were developed in the wake of the global financial crisis, when emissions dropped for the first time in the history of many developed countries. But by 2010, they had begun to rebound along with the economy. And developing countries with enormous populations like China and India were planning massive investment coal plants to power economic growth.
As you know,
of people.
If you had asked me 10 years ago whether I thought we would be in the place we are today, I would have thought that it would have been very unlikely. I would have thought that there's no way that that's possible.
So where are we today? And where are we going? The RCP origin story can help us understand.
Back in the lead up to the IPCC fifth assessment report that came out in 2013, the energy modeling community developed 4 pathways, which were essentially 4 different possible warming outcomes at the end of the century.
Now, the representative concentration pathways all come with a number. For example, RCP 2.6, RCP 4.5, or RCP 8.5. That number is essentially the imbalance in Earth's energy budget resulting from human influence on climate. And that number is expressed in watts per meter squared.
So in the case of RCP 8.5, this means that humans would have emitted enough greenhouse gases into the atmosphere to add an additional 8.5 watts per meter squared of solar radiation to the climate by 2100. And considering how many square meters are on Earth's surface, that's a lot of watts. This many, to be exact. Each of the RCP levels projects an estimated average of global warming. RCP 8.5 is close to 5 degrees.
Jeez.
RCP 4.5 is just below 3 degrees, and RCP 2.6 represents the Paris Agreement goal of limiting warming to well below 2 degrees. RCP 8.5, with its associated 5 degrees of warming, is truly an apocalyptic scenario. It means
Yikes.
game over, an existential threat. It models a world with no climate policy, and it's hard to argue that we had or have an effective climate policy either domestically or internationally.
Because RCP 8.5 was the only one of the RCPs run with no climate policy, a lot of people started referring to it as business as usual, or in a world without climate policy, we'll have 5 degrees of warming.
Emissions were just increasing year after year after year. There was the Kyoto Protocol.
I mean, like, every year every moment that we fail to make any type of headway on this, just kind of gets that closer. I mean, like, I would say that, like, most scientists, I would say climate scientists would generally, as a consensus, would agree with the fact that we kind of blew past that 1.5. Now we're looking at 2 degrees. I'm a climate doomer, so I just say shush, not to be a negative Nancy. True.
In 1992, and it was widely considered to have been a failure. It really seemed feasible that we could end up on a pathway where coal use would continue to expand, where we would continue to prioritize sort of fossil fuel economic growth throughout the remainder of the century.
And a real problem seemed to emerge with reducing emissions. So far in the 20th century, increasing carbon emissions had been correlated with
True. Every scientist keeps coming out saying it's worse than we thought. True. Every study and whatnot seems to suggest that we probably should. We probably sort of should. Maybe perhaps kind of really start doing shit now.
increasing gross domestic product and even reducing poverty. China's emissions were growing very fast along with their economy, and even with all the problems associated with rapid development, they were lifting citizens out of poverty. Other developing nations hoped to follow their lead, and coal was the fuel of choice. Could the developed world, comparatively rich after more than a century of
Do
burning
something
fossil
about
fuels, really
the polar
ask
bears are
them to
cute.
give
Trust
up on
me,
coal?
true.
And that's when something very important changed. In the 2008 global financial crisis, the emissions of many developed countries did what they had always done. They followed the economy, downward this time. But then economies rebounded. After a brief uptick, the emissions of large carbon polluters like the US, EU, and Japan
And the shit we should be
surprisingly
doing isn't
continued to
selling
fall,
carbon credits and
even
such
in a
nonsense.
world with no
True.
functioning climate policy. And GDP continued to rise.
We're not in business as usual anymore, or at least business as usual has changed.
So what exactly changed? And should we still call RCP 8.5 business as usual?
RCP 8.5 is very much a world dominated by coal. By 2100, global coal use has increased sixfold above 2010 levels, and global emissions have tripled. In the real world, global coal use has been flat, if not slightly declining, since 2014. Clean energy costs have fallen dramatically. Solar is 90% cheaper. In the last decade, wind is 66% cheaper, batteries are 90% cheaper. Electric vehicles are about 14% of new vehicle sales globally now, and upwards of 20% in places like China and Europe. And so, we're having an energy transition that was not accounted for in these sort of worst case scenarios a decade ago.
Seaver described this transition as
Well,
one
to be
where
fair-
activists, advocates, and even scientists push for emission reduction.
Yeah, to be fair, the whole point of illustrating the worst case scenario is to understand, should we go down this path? It's not feasible, not good. Polar bears will become extinct within 200 years, guaranteed. There will be just enough bears. There will be just bears with a mix of brown and polar bears. Yeah. Yeah, should things continue. Yeah.
Reductions. No one got exactly what they wanted, but there was just enough government and society support to create a tailwind for innovators, even while the US was busy pulling out of international agreements.
You can't really disentangle sort of state policies from real acceleration in private sector clean energy. It was actually because of early subsidy programs in Japan, in Germany, and in China in particular that really helped fill in the gap between what was economically feasible and sort of what needed to happen.
This is all extremely good news. And we're no longer in a no climate policy world, at least not entirely. In 2015, the Paris Agreement was signed, creating voluntary benchmarks for countries to meet in order to stay well below 2 degrees of warming, or RCP 2.6. However, almost no countries are actually on target to meet their benchmark.
Why though? Because there's no political will. These are all just agreements on paper. Yes, exactly where I was going. These are all agreements on paper with no ways of holding each other accountable. It's basically a show. As you said, it's basically a show, and no one will hold them accountable. There's no way to do it either, right? They're just jinx. There's there's no way to hold them accountable because it's just like a gentleman's agreement, right? It was a piece of paper that has no legal way of enforcement. That's it. It's for show. It's really just that. Right, if nobody meets the target, who can you blame? What's the point of having a climate accord if you're not going to abide by the climate accord? Damn, true!
Marks and
it's to give a sense that hey, look, we recognize the problem, we did it, we all shook hands, and we promised to do something about it, and let's take a nice picture, everybody, and that's it.
And the 4 largest emitters have a long way to go to even get close. So at this point, RCP 2.6 is also not very likely.
And so that's the reason why we think now that the world is probably headed toward a bit under 3 degrees under current policies and sort of technological development, rather than, close to 5 degrees where some people thought we were headed.
But even if 2 degrees of warming is still hugely ambitious, isn't it cause for celebration that we've come so far from the old projections of 5 degrees?
It's probably not literally the end of the world. I think humanity could survive in a world of 3 degrees, but it's not a world we want to leave to our children.
The IPCC was very clear.
Yeah, just to be clear, in a world of 3 degrees, that's still a pretty drastic change. That's pretty drastic. It means more and more of what we're seeing. If this right now, what we're seeing now with all these hurricanes, with all these hurricanes and just unusual climate events, unusual weather patterns and whatnot that are causing each time one of these events happen, they cause a ton of damage, not just economically, but like more importantly above all, like people die. How many people died in that New York storm alone? How many people died in the hurricane season last year? The one that just hit Florida. How many people died? How many billions? Yes. It's hard to world police or punish servant. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, that's right. Because there's no way. There isn't even a way of doing that. Right. Dozens in New York. That's hundreds of millions of people's lives, potential political unrest, and yes. I mean, like, yeah, yes, of course. And if, like, we're having problems now, 3 degrees is twice this, more or less. 3 degrees is about, twice, and then some more of this. Things like flooding in Pakistan are going to be regular occurrences. Yep. And didn't like hundreds of people die because of that? Thousands? Hold on. I'm trying to pinpoint because there's been so many like incidents that it's like hard to pinpoint. Yeah, they're having droughts in Afghanistan, in the Pacific, here in the US. Farmers can't grow food, which it turns out, and this is true, we need fucking food. Yeah, that's the one. 1,739 people died. Yeah, millions were displaced. That's like, not to mention like the millions that were displaced. 15.2 billion in economic losses in one incident, those floods. That's just now. The Colorado River is so fucked. I have no idea what we're going to do to overcome that. The entire Southwest relies on it. Yeah, to the tune of, what, like 40-something million people? That's now in 2023, folks.
Saying that every little increment of global warming is going to make things more difficult to face, like more frequent heat waves, worse floods, more intense hurricanes, more prolonged droughts.
We've already warmed 1.1 degrees, so we're talking about almost 3 times what
I'm sorry. I said twice as much. Try 3 times as much, folks.
we're experiencing today.
If you think about being a young person at 40 and how it's going to be at 80, I feel like it's similar to a world where everything is getting a little more difficult, a little worse, and all the risks are increasing of, catastrophic outcomes.
And the list of impacts goes on and on and on. But perhaps the most important reason to curb emissions is not just to stop warming, but to slow it down.
So a scenario like RCP 8.5 warms quickly and therefore doesn't leave us enough time or challenges our adaptation by changing the climate not only a lot but fast. And scenario.
That's the whole point. That's the problem. Which people seem to not quite grasp. But yeah. Simply put, a lot of people don't understand we're likely heading for an apocalypse. Humanity might not die, but a lot of people will, and something should have been done a long time ago. I mean, I do not disagree. I do not disagree. I think that it's going to be, very, very tough in the coming decades. Should we continue under these parameters. Under these parameters where we have a world where fossil fuels still dominate. I mean, the idea would be that we hopefully don't find ourselves in a world dominated by fossil fuels. But the problem is that, and this doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing what we're doing, transitioning from fossil fuels to renewables and whatnot, but like the problem is that a lot of these scenarios are kind of locked in, right? We can't do anything about all the emissions that we've already done and we are continuing to do now that are going to show up, decades to come. And you're right, something should have been done a long time ago. Decades ago. We had the information. Well, I don't know if it's going to be that uninhabitable, Astro, but it's going to be it's going to be a shitty scenario. No doubt about it. I don't think it's going to be like, yeah, we're going to end up like looking like planet Venus, as inhospitable as Venus, but like it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. Even like under scenarios where we don't adapt here, yeah, it's going to be rough. Maybe obviously I don't think like humankind is gonna become extinct, at least not yet. But it is gonna be bad.
That limits warming at 2 degrees is not only beneficial because of that sheer point, but also because by definition it's going to do that slowly and therefore letting society, but
that's true.
Also importantly, the natural ecosystems adapt.
At the current rate of warming, human adaptation has actually been working out pretty well so far. In fact, according to the WMO, over the last 50 years, the number of disasters globally has increased by around 400%, while the number of deaths has fallen by 2/3.
Right now, rich countries could potentially adapt to these changes. Poor countries would have a lot harder time doing so. And there may well be a world where we don't do a great job of solving poverty or some of these other challenges that face humanity today. And so to have that world with climate change on top of it could potentially be catastrophic for a lot of societies. And so, yeah, I'd like to hope for a world where we all become rich and equal and high tech and can deal with 3 degrees of warming. But I don't want to bet on it. And I don't want to bet the future of humanity on it.
True.
Hey, so check it out.
Hey,
This is
whoa.
a
Oi.
emergency sleeping bag. These things.
Our current trajectory of RCP 4.5 looks likely to trigger some of the tipping elements we discussed in an earlier episode. So, limiting warming to under 2 degrees, RCP 2.6, or even RCP 1.9 is a new target for avoiding the worst impacts of climate change. And this will require getting all global emissions down to zero in
Yeah, and like what she's saying is basically like, yeah, so we kind of locked in the scenario, right? The most minimum scenario, right, where like tipping points are crossed or potentially crossed. The question would be is like how many and what are those domino effects? So yeah.
in just the next 50 years or sooner.
Right now we are dealing with the easier parts of the economy to decarbonize. I think it's going to be a heavy lift. So we're not just talking about, emissions in the US and Europe. We're also talking about China. We're talking about sub-Saharan Africa, which is a huge.
I think Andrew Tate should be the next president. He definitely got the correct mindset and would help us out of the matrix. Dude, you mean the beta that got bodied by a 19-year-old and is now in jail? Damn. What are you watching that seems mad boring? I mean, your username is still sleeping.
Amount of, development and growth expected over the next century and needed over the next century. And we're talking about,
Oh
the
wow,
different
dude!
players
Hey,
in the world.
chat! Did you see that? Did you see that, chat? Damn, wow, what an own! Damn, what an own! What an own, dude! Damn, maybe one day, I'll be able to make owns. I'll be able to own people like you. He got the best marketing through Greta. He just abused the retweet things. He's going to jail for being a piece of shit. As he should. As he should. As he should. He won't go to jail. Oh no, you're right. He won't go to jail. He is in jail. That's right. The Rothschilds. Oh, we got the oh, is this the Nazi brigade? Is this the Nazi brigade? What is TOPG? What is TOPG? He's still tweeting? Didn't he get banned from Twitter? I don't know. All caps, true. All caps. When you type in alt caps, it means you're winning, chat. Okay? Yes, I know. Nazi shit. Alright, fuck off. Get out of here. Nazi shit. What color is your Bugatti? Purple. I found out today that I have a member of support of the Proud Boys living right across the street from me. Jesus, Kraylio. Stop, Wolf Glenn. I'm trying to play. Bye, Felicia. You mad, bro? Super mad. Super mad. You're such a troll? Oh, you thought you were gonna come here and troll. Aw. Bless your hearts.
Aligning on these sort of goals. The good news is that we've started to see more commitments by countries to do just that. So as of 2022, about 75% of global emissions are covered by countries that have committed, at least on paper, to get to net zero emissions by the middle to late 21st century. And that includes countries like China and India, Japan, South Korea, Brazil, as well as, of course, the US, the EU, and others.
While we have solutions for things like decarbonizing the electricity system or the transportation system, there are large unsolved challenges.
Your mom's bed game is weak. Damn, dude. Got him. Is that like the best that you can come up with? Is like your mom insults? Wow, dude. That's kind of sad, actually. That's kind of pathetic that that's like the best thing that you've come up with this entire time. Really? Mad weak, bro. True, dude. True.
Challenges in areas like heavy industry and shipping and aircraft.
But I'll be honest, what I take from this episode are two things. First is the fact that humanity created a reality of goals that felt like a fantasy just a few years ago.
Yeah, they're not even good yo mama jokes, true. Yeah, you know strong people come out and tell Twitch streamers that they're weak. Definitely reflects of strength. True. Insatiable glutton. True. Nothing projects strength like going onto a Twitch chat and telling that streamer that they're weak. True. Thank you for the follow, Insatiable Glutton. Welcome. Welcome. You know, I feel like I've seen your username before. Are you a regular in the Majority Report? No problem. Thanks. You know what? You're welcome. You're welcome for coming in here and getting educated. I'm glad. I'm not? Really? I feel like I've seen your username somewhere. I don't know. Yeah, maybe they're just maybe they're just upset from from losing 6 votes in the House. True. Well, how's it going, Wolf Glenn? I'm sorry, I didn't say hi to you. I feel like I've seen your username before, Insatiable Glutton. I don't know. Either way, welcome. Don't matter.
As just one example, in 2006, a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car detailed all the government and industry resistance to electric vehicles. Now, the US government will pay you thousands of dollars to buy one, and they're everywhere.
They still haven't chosen a
And
speaker?
second,
Nah.
the reason this remarkable progress was able to occur was because people fought for it.
I think the fact that we've already made so much progress in the last decade toward bending down the curve of future emissions.
I appreciate it, good
should
your mom
be
joke,
a
but these
hopeful
middle school
sign.
Nazis are incapable of
It's
saying one.
evidence
True!
that we can actually solve this problem if we collectively get our act together. At the same time, we can't be blindly optimistic. We can't assume that technology is going to solve all our problems. We can't assume that the problem is going to solve itself. We need concerted action by governments. We need policy, and we need people to get involved in pushing that. Because we're not heading toward a world we want to leave future generations right now. We might not be heading toward the literal apocalypse anymore, but we're still heading toward a pretty bad outcome, and we can do much better.
And now it's time to hear what you think. Are we too alarmist or not alarmed enough?
I think like the worst case scenario of being like super I think alarmist is not a good rhetorical is not a good rhetorical thing. Urgency for action, because like damn, even in this video, you know, it shows us that we're on the path of well, the possibility of certain tipping points, which we don't know what that also means when those tipping points hit, like what kind of the severity of those domino effects. We absolutely should be more alarmist, because like the worst scenario is that we implement things that, well, are just good for the environment anyways. So like it's a win-win. It's probably brought to you by the Koch Foundation. I mean, this wasn't that bad, actually. Honestly, this wasn't really that bad.
Considering how far we've come in the last decade, is it possible we can shift business as usual again? This time from RCP 4.5 to RCP 2.6, and keep global warming under 2 degrees and a planet we all want to live on. You're watching Weathered, so you're probably passionate about fire.
Oh man. Yeah. You know, the other person in chat who's trying to get through messages that are being auto-modded, you're just gonna be shouting into a void, my friend. You're just gonna be shouting into a void. Cool, dude. Cool story, bro. BBS has a way of addressing things in a way that viewers feel like they're doing something by being aware, not actually doing anything. That's true. Well, yeah, obviously there's no like call to action here. There's no call to action. What we should take from this is that, yeah, situation's pretty fucked. Situation is still pretty fucked, and that should instill a sense of urgency. Yeah, you're just gonna have to try harder, trolls. Which is always brought to you by Coke, Lockheed, and Martin, and viewers like you. True! Anywho. This should instill a sense of urgency. Watching this graph, wait, where was it? Ah, shoot. Watching this graph of where we're gonna land and understanding these usernames are getting good though. It's people who have nothing else to do, nothing better to do. This graph right here is incredibly alarming. They don't, you know, obviously, it isn't as mentioned, but this is not good. Not good right here. This graph not good. The one bit of hopium it is that maybe with enough work and enough groundwork, which is up to us, we can try to do what we can to avoid the worst ends of it. It proves they have multiple accounts because you can only change that every 90 days. True. True. We had a bit of a Nazi squad invasion, I guess. It's sad they didn't really stick around that long. I guess they got bored. Sad. Alright, folks, it is past, you know, way past 7:30. I need to go eat. And we got through all the news today. Look at that. We got through all the news today. We did it, folks. Alright. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. You get 5 free emotes or 6 free emotes. That's what they do. Doing politics. Oh, okay, yeah. Firebomb chat, and then they leave once I say something logical. Yeah. Like the point is like, if you just like don't pay attention, they'll move on. Depending on the trolls, they'll move on. They've got no power here, and at any point they start, you know, dropping the mask and doing like the anti-Semitism, the Nazi shit, and they just get banned. It's easy peasy. No sweat off my back. Alright, folks, I do have to get going. And we did end up running through everything, so yay, success! Awesome, cool. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. We're here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you guys want to go above and beyond, in terms of like supporting the channel that doesn't have to do anything with money, go on over to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. It really does help us out. Spread the word far and wide that this is the place to be, Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. As always, please stay safe, folks. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya. Have a great night. You have a great night. Thank you. I appreciate all the subs, all the biddies, all the follows. You guys are great. Thank you, Michael Hassler, for helping wrangling some of these trolls. Echo Wrestle Dragon, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Alio, for the biddies as well. Thank you, Astro, for the tier 1 sub at 6 months. Alright, folks, hang tight. We're gonna go bother Marcus from Left Flank Bets. in 10 minutes, they'll try to vote again for speakership. We'll see. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.